Hey, this is Courtney Barnett. You're listening to 88.5 WMNF Tampa.
The opinions presented on the Healthy Steps show are the evidence-based opinions of Dr. Fred Harvey, the callers, and his guests. These are not the opinions of the staff, the volunteers, or the board of WMNF. The information provided on the show is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease. There is no implied patient-physician relationship in these calls. The nature of the calls is educational and informational only.
Good morning to you. Yes, you, my esteemed listener and faithful Monday companion, my cherished friend who always keeps your dial tuned to WMNF Tampa, your resistance radio station from Tampa Bay to the Gulf of Mexico, and the only shrewd little FM radio station that Lloyd Dobler streams when he's not listening to Peter Gabriel on his boombox. And you can stream us as well at WMNF.org. Well, great day in the morning to you. Nothing could be finer than throwing open the window to the fresh air of another AMA Ask Me Anything Monday. So my invitation to you today is to call into the Healthy Steps radio show. This show depends on your medical questions, comments, and concerns. Just give us a call at 813-239-9663. Again, that number to call is 813-239-9663. You can also send an email to dj@wmnf.org. And if that weren't enough, you still can send us a text at 813-433-0885. Good morning to you, Dr. Harvey. I hope that you had a spectacular weekend and that you are now rested and fully prepared to guide us through another AMA Monday. Your loyal and sagacious listeners have waited a week for this moment, so let me turn the show over to you as I sulk out of here. What is the new lay of the land today, Doctor?
Well, thank you, Bill, and I love your introductions. It was a wonderful weekend, and yes, I'm rested. I hope all of you are too, and I hope you did well with the outdoor celebrations in the heat this weekend, because yes, it was a hot one, and but probably a little bit assuaged by intermittent rainstorms, so you could avoid some of the heat. But yeah, there's always something happening in this world. There's so many new things coming out related to health. It's just a plethora of positivity, and it's really amazing because we hear so many negative stories, people naysaying this and naysaying that. It's amazing. But one of the biggest things that people argue against these days in the health movement is vaccines. And yeah, I think that we really need to consider what, these interventions are and what they mean and how they work and what they do for us. And though there could be adverse complications, adverse issues with doing any kind of external intervention, what we see with vaccines really is that there is a lot of safety and a lot of benefit. Let's see, I think it's about 40 years now, close to it, the human papillomavirus vaccine has been available. Maybe not quite so long, but the HPV vaccine, as it's called, Gardasil 9 is its name of a branded version of that vaccine, has been studied for years. Initially, it seemed like there might be some correlation between the administration of this vaccine and the possibility of having increased autoimmune disease. But numerous studies have looked at the long-term complications of exposure to the HPV vaccine. And although there is a report of some increased symptoms, there's no report of actually increased incidence of autoimmune disease. So that's really good to know that this vaccine does not cause an increase in autoimmunity. And so that was one of the biggest complaints that people had about it, that it may cause autoimmune disease. But numerous studies have been done that showed that there was no evidence of an increased risk of the autoimmune diseases as compared with a population who didn't receive the vaccines. But there's really good news about this intervention, because the intervention was intended to prevent cervical cancer, because human papillomavirus, wart virus, is the cause of most human cervical cancer and anal cancer, actually. And so screening for this is a way of early detection. You still have the cancer. You can treat it and maybe have less problems, but there's a 31% mortality for cervical cancer because it's hidden. Same with anal cancer. It's not noticed until later because it's inside, it's in the dark. And when you finally get symptoms, you're at a point where it's probably gone to a tertiary level, a stage 4, where it's metastasized. And so it's very difficult to treat at that point. And so it's much better to prevent it. HPV, or actually cervical cancer, was the 4th leading type of cancer for women across the world. But the 5-year mortality rate is over 31% for people who get the diagnosis. This essentially virtually eliminates it. It's really amazing. This vaccine is doing such a good job that cancer mortality rate from HPV has dropped to virtually nothing in the people that have had the injection. This is amazing news. We can essentially eliminate a cancer by vaccinating for its cause. And so it really does make sense to have all women vaccinated against this very common cancer. But then again, I think gay men should consider this as well, because the incidence of anal cancer is similar for gay men as to the incidence of cervical cancer. In the way it develops, in the way it's diagnosed, the way it's treated. And so you really want to prevent these cancers. They're totally preventable with the vaccine. And so it really makes a lot of sense to consider this specific intervention, because there's, I talk a lot about prevention, and this is real prevention. I talk about how the difference in functional medicine versus conventional medicine in prevention and early detection. Western medicine has lots of early detection screening tests. You diagnose the cancer early, but you've diagnosed the cancer, you haven't prevented it. What you prevent is worse complications from the cancer, possibly preventing dying from the cancer by treating it early, but you still have this problem of having the cancer. So if we can do things that would prevent you from going down that pathway, I think it makes a lot of sense, because that is the most effective treatment, is to never actually develop the illness. And considering that this vaccination is extremely safe, and that exposure to it doesn't cause significant chronic long-term problems, but it does prevent cervical cancer, this is a really, really great improvement. And so I think we're going to continue to find more and more positive information about a variety of immune interventions. I've talked about some of the other ones previously. I'll talk about them again. I don't believe that everybody needs every vaccination all the time, constantly, but there are very definitively evidence-based protocols that can really set you up for a very healthy life. This is one of those healthy steps you can take to ensure that you won't have your health interrupted by something as nasty as cervical cancer. And this is Dr. Fred Harvey, and I'm on the Healthy Steps Show. Love to chat with you today, and I believe that we do have a caller here.
Yes, we have Tom from St. Pete.
Good morning,
Hi, Tom.
and a belated happy birthday, America.
Indeed.
Say, I have something I wanted to talk about, but first, to start with, should a person over 60, is the HPV vaccine included in the recommended regimen for people over 60?
Actually, it's in the regimen for younger people to prevent this for their whole lives. But I think that it would be available. I'm not sure. That's a good question.
Would you recommend it?
If you're sexually active, unprotected with unknown partners, it probably makes sense. But if you have a lifelong partner and neither of you have HPV, then the use of this vaccine is the utility of it is limited.
Well, I haven't been sexually active since I lost my wife, but the potential exists, and I like to be prepared, and I'm just thinking that it sounds like it's a why not to me. Right?
Yes, and so the FDA has approved it for ages 9 through 45. Over 45, it's not licensed, and so it will unlikely be covered, but you can pay for it.
I will check that out. Otherwise, I wanted to amplify something that you touched on last month, and that is on AI, Dr. AI.
Yes.
And I think I can speak as an expert. I've been a systems analyst and a programmer since the 80s. I programmed in binary and lost track of how many languages I programmed. And we had a saying back when I was younger, garbage in, garbage out, which was if you program the computer wrong, it's going to do the wrong thing. And it's going to do a lot of it because the computer just magnifies whatever you're doing. And,
yes.
AI, I'm going to coin a term. I haven't heard yet. I didn't actually Google it, so I don't know. Maybe it is a term. But my term is BS in, BS out. And we all know what BS stands for.
Exactly.
And as of 2017, I mentioned before, a Yale University study shows that more than half of the information on the internet is wrong. It's either disinformation or misinformation. No telling whether somebody's lying, making something up, or just doesn't know.
Right.
But more than half the information is wrong on the internet. So if you train an AI on the internet in general, it's going to be wrong more than half the time. And people need to be aware of that. And what you touched on with Grok is, who knows what Grok has been trained on? Because you got an unhinged man at the top who turns the.
Have you read? Hey, have you read any of the threads on X?
No, I do not participate in much social media. Actually.
Well, so I've read some threads on X, and if X is what was used to train Grok, Grok is a cesspool of misinformation, disgust, hate, obvious anger, management issues, and weirdness. Therefore, Grok is not a useful tool for anyone unless they just want to play games.
Right. And unless ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude and all the others are filtered away from the majority wrong information, they're going to have wrong information. You can do simple searches on all of those and see wrong information all the time. Just
that's correct.
For example, I do it all the time. Check for live music in your city tonight and see how much you get from your city tonight. It's going to be from last year, last month. It's got wrong information because it's basing it off of wrong information. So
yeah, exactly.
In conclusion, I just want to say the flip side of that is, if you train AI only on correct information, let's just say the Mayo Clinic, the Cleveland Clinic, the top universities of the world all compiled all of their information through an AI that we could trust, we would have something that would be invaluable to humanity. And
it's called open evidence.
No kidding.
Yeah, well, there's actually an AI that, I mean, I can't trust Claude or ChatGPT to do anything medical for me. They give me direction, they give me concepts, they give me outlines and directions to go in. But I use Open Evidence, which is an AI trained on all of the medical literature on the planet, all the evidence-based reality, and it's available for all physicians who have a license to actually use to get solid evidence-based information. I use Open Evidence all the time.
Well, thank you for that. And just imagine now you're making me wonder. I wonder how many other evidence-based sciences have compiled information like that, only not in medical.
Well, I wonder. Medicine makes a lot of money, so people have invested a lot into this one. But what's really interesting about it is that I have done medical research forever. You hear me talk about things that I've gone deep on, but I don't want to pay $35 to $50 for every article. And this Open Evidence has actually made contracts with every one of the firewall journals so that we have access to all this information in real time, so we don't have to actually pay per article to do our research.
I'm going to be researching that, because if we had Nature magazine and Popular Science and all of the other great publications of the different disciplines out there. A person could theoretically self-educate themselves to the graduate level with nothing but a telephone. So,
however,
anyway,
when you go into the professions, I'd really prefer to have a doctor supervising your application of that information before you actually touch a patient.
Yeah. Well, you have to be licensed to touch anybody anyway.
Right.
In my Reiki course, but I'm not saying that we don't need doctors. We obviously do, because to interpret the information is another level. You can have the information and it can be staring you in the face, but if you don't understand what it's telling you and what the implications are, that's why we need you, and that's why I'm glad we have your show for free.
That's why we need the human touch. We need to have the ability to hear another human speak, to hear what they're really telling us between the lines, to feel with empathy what they're feeling, so we understand what we need to do.
And I'm telling you what, this move away from diversity, equity, and inclusion is just the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. If you don't want to hear diverse opinions and diverse knowledge from people that you view equally and you include in your plethora of information, how are you going to understand life and the world in general? You are at a distinct disadvantage, which is probably what some people want.
Well, control gives people a feeling of safety, but in reality, evolution and life is messy, and though the system is set up to move forward constantly with very little maintenance, the minor influences that we can do are going to be re-erased by the larger picture as time goes on. If you think about it, humanity has been in the universe about less than 30 seconds on a 24-hour clock.
Yeah.
We don't have much of an impact as yet.
The universe is less than a second. Yeah. We're just a blip in time. But I tell you what, our blip in time matters for the next blip in times that will be the present moment for them and for us. We continue through the actions and the decisions, the choices that we make in each moment with each breath that we take, and make the right decisions. Get all the information you can.
So true, Tom.
Make the right decisions.
Take a healthy step every day.
Exactly. Love you, buddy.
Love you too. Thanks for calling. I think we have another caller on the line.
Thank you. Good day. Bye-bye.
Yes, we got Stan from Lakeland.
Hey,
good morning, Stan.
Harvey.
Hi there.
How's it going today?
It's going really well. How about with you?
Really well. I had some sinus issues, and a guy that I know said that he takes apricot seeds and it helps his sinuses. And
That's
so
interesting.
He gave me some, and I started reading about it, and I'm not sure. Are they good? Are they okay to take?
Well, apricot seeds are an interesting food. You don't want to do a lot of it because it actually does contain some cyanide. And the apricot pit extract has been called Laetrile, and it's been touted as a cancer therapy. What it does is it increases the amount of cyanide in your blood, and then it increases the amount of cyanohemoglobin, which is the hemoglobin carries oxygen around, and when it has cyanide on it, it can't, and that's how cyanide kills. It deprives you of oxygen. Well, the theory is that a little lower oxygen tension in your body might starve some cancer cells and kill them, but there's no direct cancer killing nature of the apricot pit. And from my understanding, there's no sinus treatment nature to it. They're apricot pits. There are some good things to do for sinus, though. If you have chronic sinus problems, using a neti pot, N-E-T-I, which is an Ayurvedic Indian tradition treatment that you put a cup of distilled water into the container, and then you put a packet of or a half teaspoon of a salt and baking soda mixture into that cup and dissolve it, and then use that to irrigate your nose, either with a squirting bottle or a pour through kind of Aladdin's lamp little pot. Doing that once a day cleans out a bunch of the mucus. Having baking soda in there actually breaks up mucus really nicely and helps it get out of you. And then you can take things like stinging nettle leaf extract, which is a natural antihistamine-like herb, and you can use quercetin. Quercetin is the red coloring in red onions and red apples that helps to stabilize your allergy system. And there's a really good Chinese herb that doesn't seem to interfere with blood pressure like Sudafed does. It's called Bian Pian, B-I-A-N, P-I-Y-A-N, and that one is really good at decongesting.
Yeah, I normally try and take a saline solution and go through the nose. And the doctor, my sinus doctor, gave me some pills that I also drop in there. And I'm not sure what's in them, but it does seem like it helps my sinuses. But
Good.
I just didn't know about the apricot seeds, and whether you think they're safe to take, if I don't take too many, or.
My question is, what are you taking them for? Because therapeutically, they don't seem to have much validity. And so why bother with something that might be poisonous if it doesn't have a specific use for you?
Yes, gotcha. So I'll just pass on them and keep doing my nasal stuff. Yes.
Sounds like a good plan.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Have a great day, and good luck with those sinuses.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Looks like the board has gone dark. Is that right, Joe?
Yes.
All right. So, talking about some other things in the news, I found a really interesting article today that talks about particulate exposure. And particulates are air pollution. And there's a lot of literature currently about the PM 2.5. That's 2.5 micron particulate matter. The size of the particulate matters, and this is the one that seems to be associated with chronic diseases. And exposure to these things can do all kinds of disruption in the physiology of people. And they did a really interesting study where they looked at children in Mexico City. And Mexico City is known to have not the best air. It's a city of 23 million trapped in a bowl. And so it does accumulate a lot of particulate matter. And so what they looked at here was an interesting thing, because we know we have an epidemic of childhood obesity. And so we're trying to figure out what it is that causes this. And I have read a lot of evidential articles about how herbicides and pesticides alter the way our body deals with sugar. They increase inflammation and do these other things that can result in diabetes and obesity. And we know that particulate matter also is linked to similar issues. Neurotoxicity. We know that the brain doesn't work as well with particulate exposure. And in fact, particulate exposure can lead to cognitive decline and dementia later in life. But we're talking about childhood changes. And so they have found that particulate matter is linked to childhood obesity. And one of the things that they found is that children who were exposed in utero during pregnancy, as a fetus, and during the first year of life, if they were exposed to large amounts of PM 2.5, they tracked obesity and behavior. And what they found wasn't really good. They found that if you're exposed in prenatal time and in the first year of life to these PM 2.5s, you have higher obesity outcomes and less impulse control. There's an indirect effect on inhibitory control of behavior. And so it turns out that at 8 years, the body mass index and the percent body fat and the and change from 4 to 8 years showed a huge amount of increase related to these chemicals or these particulates. And so their conclusion was that PM2 exposure in the first year of life directly predicts childhood obesity through a pathway mediated by poor inhibitory control. People crave sweets or whatever, and they go for it. They want an extra serving, and they go for it. And so we're finding that air pollution is actually causing obesity. And it feeds right into my understanding that toxicity is what causes obesity. Toxicity is what's causing our ongoing health issues. Toxicity causes inflammation. And so we have this ongoing exposure problem that just is difficult to deal with because, dealing with particulates are extremely difficult. If you live near a highway, near a 4-lane highway, you're getting the particulate effect of a pack of cigarettes a day because the tires on the hot roads with the friction make particulates go into the atmosphere. There are latex and plastic particulates that come off of these tires. It's everywhere. And so we need to pay more attention to helping people that are in those areas. And if you're in those areas, maybe consider wearing protective respiratory gear. Because a mother breathing this stuff is actually getting affected to the point where her child is going to have these problems ongoing, likely. A significant increase in the risk is noted. And so I just want to remind everybody that we're on the Healthy Steps show on WMNF Tampa, and this is a call-in radio show. just want to remind everybody that I'm here to answer your questions because we're not getting any emails or phone calls today. So I just want to remind people that the phone number is 813-239-9663. And you can email the DJ at wmnf.org. And if you'd like, you could text also 813-433-0885. I'd love to hear from some more of you today. And otherwise, I can keep talking because I like to talk. Another thing that came up today in my readings was a really interesting thing about happiness and leisure time. And we just spent a weekend off. And in that leisure time, many people probably felt happy. But it's not necessarily a typical response to having just time off. You see, in our time off, we could get bored. And it turns out that activities are really what make the time off better. Time with friends, time with family. And what's interesting is that even if we have leisure time, working is associated with a decreased, or actually, I should say, working for more than 6 hours was associated with a decreased likelihood of having a good day, but working for less than 6 hours seemed to promote some happiness. And I think the real reason for this is that we do become bored inside. Our soul wants something to do. And that leads to a thought that comes from the research done on the blue zones. One of the key things about the blue zones is that people there have purpose. They get up in the morning with something to do. And so having a purpose really helps people understand that life is actually really pretty good. That accomplishing a little task, say it's just straightening up the kitchen or something on your leisure time, it can really make you feel good and make your day go better. And so I think it's really interesting that, having a day off and doing nothing isn't really very useful for us. Unless we really need rest. And I'm not going to discount rest. It's really good. When you're tired, take that day and do nothing. But don't make a week of doing nothing your vacation, because I think you're likely to get bored and you're likely to find that you're going to go do something. You're going to find something different to do, because without purpose, we get distracted. This is when we get in trouble. We start doing things we don't need to be doing. I think we have a caller.
Yes, we have Sarah from Dade City here.
Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning. I just wanted to say on your last comment there, I'm somebody who actually likes having a week to do nothing. I did absolutely nothing over the 4th of July weekend, and I am still working, of working age. I think it really refreshes me to just relax and sleep as much as I want, not on a schedule, no alarm, don't have to be anywhere at any certain time. And I think activity builds, let's just call them alarm clocks into my life that I don't need. Oh, I have to meet so-and-so at 3, or I have to be at such an event at 5. But what I wanted to call about this week was...
Actually, before you go with that, I want to say, yes, I agree. Everyone's a snowflake. Everyone has different responses. But when you look at the overall clinical evidence on it, it seems that people tend to not behave like you. They don't have the same response as you. But everybody is entitled to their own way of living life and experiencing it the way they need to. So more power to you. Take that time off.
Yeah, and I agree. I meet a lot of people who are what I call Energizer bunnies, who literally could not sit still for a 3-day weekend. Just, they can't. They got to be up. They got to be, I don't know if it's their nerves or whatever, but I'm not one of those. But anyway, what I wanted to talk about was I am not a Republican by any stretch of the imagination, but I called that New Jersey Republican congressman's office last week. I think his name is Tom Keene.
Yes.
Thanked him for giving that speech on the floor of the House of Representatives about what depression is really like. And I told the person when I called, I said, I don't live in New Jersey. I'm not a Republican, but people criticize, oh, he waited too long to tell and whatever. I'm glad he, as a congressman, and what I read, he's a Nepo baby. He's a trust fund kid. His father was the governor of New Jersey at some point.
Yes.
And for somebody that high profile to come out, and what I really liked about what he said about depression, having dealt with that the majority of my adult life and many, many family members, is it's not just sadness, as everybody should know by now, but that it is physical. And it has to do with what I just talked about doing over the weekend, energy levels. I thought it was going to be longer. I think I went back and watched it on YouTube. It was only like 5 minutes. I wish he had talked for longer than that. But I just told his office, thank you from a non-Republican, non-New Jersey resident for bringing that to the forefront.
I think it's really important that we talk about mental health issues, but I think we also need to point out that Mr. Keene is a hypocrite in that he took family leave to recover from his mood disorder. And I got to tell you, mood disorders aren't in the mood, they're in the physiology, and no psychiatrist or primary care doctor ever checks the physiology of mood. And so that's another whole thing. But Tom Keene voted against every possibility of expanding family leave because he's a Republican. So he got the elite treatment where he got to take time off and recover. And he's up there flapjapping about how important depression is. But he's the guy that voted against helping Americans with this problem by giving them family leave for this problem. How do you like that? Hypocrisy.
He could change his stance on those issues.
Yeah, he could, but he doesn't. And that's the hypocrisy. And that's why no matter what he said on stage, I still think he's a hypocritical politician who isn't doing enough for his constituents because he's damaging them by voting against help for them.
How do you know he's not going to change?
He hasn't. That's the whole thing. He's up there talking about it now, and he's for years done this. Is it because he's been deranged or what?
He's been a Nepo baby.
So he's deranged, and I don't trust him now because he's still in the same party.
And maybe this life experience will allow him now to see the other point of view, that people do need family care and leave and all the stuff to help people who are trying to recover or care for people who have any kind of illness.
Sometimes it does take a life event to change somebody's mind. I agree.
I feel like it's a positive thing when somebody like that has a life-altering event. Obviously, he was out for 4 months and says, maybe the way I've lived my life, and he's about my age, I've got a different perspective, and I'm going to do things differently. And I hope and pray that's the case.
Yes, I have an open mind, and I will listen, and I will watch to see if he votes against any of the hideous stuff that he's voted for in the past, or votes for the important things that he has voted against. So thank you for that. It's really important that we know who Tom Keene is. Let's see whether he follows through on this miraculous change, which I've never seen a Republican go through. So let's go to our next caller. Thank you.
All right. We have Scott from Palm Harbor here.
Good morning, Scott.
Good morning, doctor. I got a question for you. I just recently had to go to the emergency room. I ate too fast. I had a piece of romaine lettuce and chicken lodged in my esophagus. So they did the scope and took it out. Everything was fine. But I was diagnosed with eosinophilic esophagus. Does that ring a bell in your memory, which you have a vast one, I know?
Eosinophilic esophagitis. That is an allergy reaction in your esophagus. So I think you probably should see somebody who's going to do some serum allergy to help you much, because they don't do food allergies. And it's likely to be a food allergy. With eosinophils high, There is stuff you can do to calm down those cells. And yeah, I think it's really worth it to consider talking to a functional medicine doctor about different approaches for this, because there's not a specific treatment for eosinophilic esophagitis in gastroenterology.
Right. He wants me to go on a OMEPRAZAZOLE for.
Okay, so let me tell you about that. He wants to put you on a acid suppressor,
right,
that simply blocks the acid coming out of the cells in your stomach instead of. And here's the key: eosinophils trigger allergy. Allergy includes histamine. Famotidine, Pepsid, is an antihistamine. It's been used for 40 years now for ulcers and reflux, and it is a better choice because omeprazole doesn't inhibit histamine.
Okay, what's the one you just recommended?
Famotidine. It's an over-the-counter. It's called Pepsid. And I would talk to my doctor about that one because eosinophils are associated with allergy, and histamine's associated with allergy.
Pepsid, right? PEP?
CID, yeah. And that's an over-the-counter. You should be able to talk with him about using that instead of the proton pump inhibitor, because this directly affects your issue.
Kidneys, right? Kidneys that can thin the bones over time, right?
No, I'm talking about the problem that you actually have going on right now.
Right.
Not future stuff. I'm talking about actually treating what you've got. And the proton pump inhibitor reduces acid, but it doesn't do anything for the
cause.
The cause. And so there's no specific treatment for eosinophils except find out what's triggering your eosinophils.
Right. And that's the cause. And there's a high count of white cells, which would indicate that's what the body's trying to do, right? React to this allergy.
Yeah, and what we know in eosinophilic esophagitis, your histamine 2 receptor is overexpressed. In other words, your gut is listening to histamine too much, and antihistamines would be the treatment of choice because the histamine 2 receptor, which is what famotidine works on, is actually the source of some of your symptoms, but not the cause. And so you need to see a functional medicine doctor to find out what's triggering your eosinophilic esophagitis.
I totally agree. That's what I thought so too. Good. I'm glad I'm not going down this route. He wants to go do another one. I guess he's going to try to expand the esophagus or something like that. I don't want to go down that route.
You may have an esophageal stricture because of it, but that could be inflammation too. And it may be worth it to wait until the inflammation is lower to get that stretched out if you've never had food get stuck before.
Yeah, I have. I've had it happen before, but
so then you probably have an anatomic stricture there that's causing problems too. You probably have ongoing inflammation, and you may even have some scarring. So it's worth it to listen to your gastroenterologist, but talk about some other interesting things with him.
Okay, great information. I appreciate all your input very much. So
glad to help.
All right.
Hey, folks, we're down to the last 10 minutes or so. I have one more caller on the line, it seems, and a couple of emails. But if you'd like to talk, remember, this is a call-in show, 813-239-9663. And I think Dan from St. Pete is on.
Yes.
Oh, hey, Doc. I'm catching your show, and you're talking about toxicity as it pertains to particles in the air or maybe anywhere. But what about toxic people, man? How do they screw you up? Toxic people.
Toxic people can be a problem, yes. When you are around people that are abusive to you, then yes, you definitely can get symptomatology. So you can't change people, but you can change the situation. So if toxic people are toxic, you might just need to remove yourself from their presence and not be around them. I think that's the best answer.
Well, what if there's everywhere, like there's just like 10 of them and you're the only one that's not toxic?
Wow, that's a difficult thing. So if it's in a family situation, you have a lot to deal with there. If it's in a work situation, again, it makes it difficult. The best you can do, I think, is to take some time for you in silence every day and try to get out of that energy and then look for a way out. I think if you can't, if these people are constantly toxic to you, around you, and you're in the situation, you might have to remove yourself somehow from that situation.
I hear it kind of rubs off on me, man, all this toxicity.
It does.
Yeah.
And so it's best if you can avoid it. And it's so hard to sometimes when work and family are involved.
I think I can change people.
Well, that's a delusion, and you better step back from that one, or you're going to get yourself even more unhappy than you already are in the current situation.
Okay, thanks, man.
Have a great day, Dan. Is Eric on the line?
Yes, here he is.
Hello?
Hi there, Eric.
How you doing? I think I called the wrong number. I was about to go to the business line. You on air now?
We're on air. If you don't want to be on air, we'll go to the next caller.
All right, we have Rita from Tampa.
Very good. Hi, Rita.
Hi, Dr. Harvey. I love you. You're awesome. I've been diagnosed with RA and placed on methotrexate, but I still have severe hand problems and numbness. I didn't know if you had any ideas on that.
Well, you have an autoimmune disease. Something triggered your autoimmune disease. So most people have some genetic predisposition for the way they develop responses to challenges. Some people get heart disease, some people get cancer, some people get autoimmune disease. And so each one is associated with certain triggers, mediators, and predispositions. And so it's worth it for you to consider what's going into your body that causes the ongoing inflammation, and what can we do about that? Are the things we can do to make your microbiome in your belly happier so it's not promoting inflammation? Are there food substances that are causing triggering for your immune system? These questions deserve a deeper dive with a doctor who can ask those questions. Have you seen a functional medicine doctor?
No, but I'm thinking of doing that next because I'm really not doing that well with methotrexate.
Yeah, I mean, the autoimmune drugs suppress your immune system, but they don't cure the problem. And so you need to find something else that might help stabilize your system.
Okay. Well, I'll be checking into somebody in Tampa then.
Yeah, you can find somebody at ifm.org. The Institute for Functional Medicine has a physician finder, and you can do like 25 miles, 50 miles, 100 miles from wherever you live to see if you can find somebody that is doing something that you might be interested in. And there's also a holistic rheumatologist in Tampa, and there's also another one in St. Petersburg that I found online, and I don't have their names handy, but if you do holistic rheumatology, you'll probably find somebody.
Oh, good. Okay. I will do that. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome, Rita. Good luck.
Fish oil and everything. Thank you. Okay.
You're welcome.
All right. And we have Scotty from Safety Harbor.
Hello, Scotty.
Hey, Doc. Hey.
What do you have today?
Give me your opinion on a couple things. Zeolite and the combination of clove, wormwood oil, and I forget what the last one is, black walnut oil or something like that.
So clove, wormwood, black walnut, all used in the Herbal Eclectic Guide for Parasites.
Right.
Okay. And what do you want to know about it?
I just wanted your opinion on it. What you think.
It's an herbal anti-parasitic. My perspective is most people in America don't have parasites, and so most people don't need to worry about doing an anti-parasitic.
Okay. Zeolite, that's supposed to be the binder?
Zeolite is a binder. It helps take out some toxins. I use Shilajit instead of zeolite. zeolites in a family of substances called nanoparticulate aluminum silicate, and another nanoparticulate aluminum silicate is called asbestos, and it causes cancer. And I have yet to see long-term safety data on zeolite, being that it is of the same chemical nature. It's probably safe because it looks different than asbestos, but I use Shilajit, Shilajit, as my binder.
Thank you very much, sir. This is why I call you.
You're very welcome. Glad to help.
Have a wonderful day.
And you too. Have a great July. I have a bunch of emails. Let me move over to that unless we get another caller. Here's one. My son, 59 years old, has a glioblastoma of the brain and had surgery a year ago, just finished radiation treatments. So what they want to know is what kind of supplements would I recommend for somebody who's gone through this? And I wouldn't just randomly recommend. I would suggest getting a really solid Mediterranean diet with a good 12 ounces of lean protein a day, lots of vegetables, eat the rainbow. But I would get a metabolomic test like the NutraVal from Genova Diagnostics, and possibly a deep cellular vitamin test like the Vibrant America a vitamin profile. Very detailed stuff that can tell you where you have things missing after that kind of intervention. I think it's really important to fill in the correct gaps rather than randomly shooting when you have such a significant illness as a cancer like a glioblastoma. This person wants to know, what are some good things to lose weight outside of GLP-1 medications? Well, the first thing to do is to evaluate your habits. What's causing the weight gain? And is it what you're eating, what you're not doing as far as exercise? Is it chemicals that are in your body that are causing it? You know, if you're on a steroid, corticosteroid for asthma, you're not going to lose weight very easily. There's so many layers here that could be involved. Oh, I love the snake oil. This is the latest snake oil ad for health. Peter says, a Jello made with turmeric, apple cider, and red wine vinegar for losing belly fat. Well, yeah, I think actually it would probably make me lose belly fat because the Jello would be so disgusting. I wouldn't want to eat anything else. Otherwise, I can't think of a metabolic reason that would help you lose weight. Are there any, from Joe, are there any OTC, over-the-counter, or natural compounds that can help with sundowning in Alzheimer's patients? Actually, I think getting the person out in the morning and getting sunlight on their body in the morning helps to reset that cycle. Melatonin, a time release after dinner, may help to begin to slow things down. GABA, Pharma GABA, GABA, is a calming supplement. Magnesium glycinate's another calming supplement. There's a bunch of different things you can do, but it may require more intervention than that. And let's see. Somebody said, for happiness, when I'm broke, it isn't helpful. I agree with you. That is a struggle. And on that note, I will leave you with this. Thank you again for a great show. Joe, thanks for running the boards. Maddie, thanks for answering the phones. Thank all you healthy steppers for calling in on this early Monday on post-holiday weekend in the summer. I appreciate your participation. And next week I'll be back with some more AMA. But in the meantime, if you want to see how toxic or inflamed you are, stop by the Functional Medicine Florida webpage and fill out the Toxiflammation questionnaire so you can understand where you are on the spectrum of toxicity and inflammation that may affect your current and or future health. Have a great week. See you next week.
This is WMNF Tampa. Stay tuned for Sustainable Living with AD Ellis.